Hello there, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for one of our weekly webinars for Verizon employees. My name is Samantha, and I am in client services here at the Retirement Group. I moderate these weekly webinars. In just a minute, we are going to be joined by our advisor, Patrick Ray, and he will be speaking to Verizon employees about some of the most common mistakes made when beginning to decide to elect your Social Security benefits. Patrick will go over these mistakes with you in hopes to help you avoid them, as well as how to choose the best date to begin electing your Social Security benefits so that you don't leave any money on the table. Before Patrick comes on, I would like to very quickly remind you that although we work very closely with both active and retired members of Verizon, the Retirement Group is not affiliated nor endorsed whatsoever by Verizon. We are a completely independent group of financial advisors here, so please keep that in mind. After Patrick's presentation, I will rejoin him to ask him any of the questions you may have entered into the Q&A chat throughout his presentation. Please feel free to ask away. It is completely anonymous, and Patrick will answer as many questions as he can, time permitted, of course. So with that, let's bring on our speaker, Patrick Ray. Hey, Patrick.
Thank you, Sam. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. As Sam mentioned, my name is Patrick Ray, and I'm one of the senior advisors here with the Retirement Group. And today we've got a really important topic to cover, which has to do with understanding some of the big mistakes that we see when it comes time to take advantage of a benefit that all of us have been paying into for quite some time, right, with respect to Social Security. And so it's kind of one of those hurry up and wait type scenarios where when you pay in for something into something for so long, sometimes we get eager to want to collect on that benefit, right? You hear a lot of negative news in the information that's available about the status of Social Security and how long it may last and what they may do. Which all may actually affect most of us in one way, shape, or form. But the reality is we want to just cover some basis of understanding some of the solid knowledge that you should have so that you can make informed and intelligent decisions for your family, especially given that this is one of the most important financial things when you talk about leading and getting into retirement that one might have. So if you have not heard of the Retirement Group before and you're joining us for the very first time, welcome. We appreciate your attention and hopefully you find some value in what we have to talk about. But we have a team of advisors across the country that the group has a ton of experience in helping Fortune 100 company employees transition into a successful retirement. And one of the tools that we utilize in an effort to do so is this webinar platform where we bring a bunch of new and even sometimes older information that's more relevant for one reason or another with respect to interest rates and pension plans and things of this nature. And as such, we're talking about Social Security today. And we have offices across the country, so it's likely that we'll be able to team you up with a member of our group that can help you. That's close to you in proximity with respect to where you are located. And most of our knowledge comes with the experience that we've dealt with over the years in helping people with their pension plans and their 401k and savings plans, and of course their medical benefits as well. But the thing you may find the most value of is something we refer to as a cash flow analysis. This is a complimentary service that we offer, which allows us to stress test where you're at. And frankly, the sooner that you dive into this exercise, the more prepared that you'll probably end up being overall with your retirement decisions. And so it's a time where we spend a few minutes with you if you're willing to spend a few minutes with us and get to know you a little bit better so that we can prepare a document that kind of helps map out what your future looks like from a retirement perspective. And I'll give you information on how to get in touch with us at the end of the workshop today on if you wish to do so. If you're not already following on LinkedIn, I would encourage you to do that. We have a lot of updates and a ton of information. That's a great source for people to keep up to date with what's going on. And a lot of it is company specific. So depending on what company that you're at, you might be able to enjoy some more detailed information if you're following us on our LinkedIn page. So I encourage you to do that. And then we'll get into what we have to talk about today, which are the mistakes or the major things that we think you should try to avoid when it comes time to address and deal with your Social Security. And the first one is pretty simple because a lot of times people, as I mentioned, are eager to collect on their benefit, and it's because they've been paying in for years and years and years and years. And most people are like, hey, I don't want to lose my benefit, and I want to get the most out of the system, and therefore I'm going to start my benefit today, even though it could be up to 24 to 26% less than what you would otherwise get at full retirement age. So you become eligible to take your Social Security payment at age 62, but it's a significantly reduced benefit. And so the the caveat to that, of course, not is it a lower payment, but it also could affect your spousal benefits. And so we'll talk more about the spouse, assuming that you're married, and what you might want to consider with respect to the things that may or may not affect them in a positive or a negative way. And one of them may be collecting your benefit just too early. Whereas if you were to wait until full retirement age, or even at age 70, it's a surplus or an increase that could substantially increase the amount of money that you receive over your lifetime. So something else to consider is, of course, if you push off your Social Security payment and you retire at 62 or 63 or 65 or something, you're going to have to figure out where your income's going to come from. And maybe you don't have a pension payment of any sort, and all you are going to be able to do is to rely on your savings and so forth. There may be a actual tax advantage to do so, because if your money is coming from an IRA, as an example, we want to try to make the most tax efficient decision that we can in all aspects. And so it's possible that it makes some sense to pay some tax at a lower tax bracket from our IRA withdrawals that you might have, and postpone your Social Security payment as an example of something you could consider to avoid claiming your benefit too early. Not understanding your spousal benefit is a huge error. And unfortunately, depending on if you're married or divorced or widowed, all of these things could have an impact on your spouse or your surviving benefit of who would be relevant to collect whatever it is that's most advantageous for your household. And so failing to understand how these benefits work is certainly an error in our eyes. And I'm kind of old school, as it turns out, and I love the idea of trying to schedule some time with a Social Security expert within the framework of the system, so that you can get a crystal clear understanding of what your options are, what the benefits are, what you can and can't do, and so forth. And a lot of times it's easy to just collect your benefit online. And if you haven't had any issues with your Social Security number, for example, where it was hacked or something like this when you went to file your tax return, you probably don't have any issues with being able to file online, which you can do. But then you're basically on your own to understand how these spousal benefits may or may not affect you. And so I just, my advice always to our folks when given a chance is to collect your information from your Social Security expert within the system when you go to collect your benefit, and understand exactly what it is that you have as an option, especially when it comes to your spousal benefits, for sure. Underestimating longevity is a huge issue, right? And this talks in real time to the folks that we see who are trying to transition into retirement, and maybe they have 6 to 12 months or 18 months before they leave the payroll, and their number one priority is to try to pull the risk breaks off of the 401k that they have, as an example. And it's because they say that they can't afford to lose any more money, for example, on their 401k, because they only have 6 to 12 to 18 months to live. And what's happening is they're underestimating their longevity, because in reality, if you retire at age 60, for example, and you're a female, you have a life expectancy as to get you to 86, which is another 36 or 26 years, roughly 26 to 30 years as a household if you're married, because one of you have a likelihood to live to age 90. And being able to afford yourself the opportunity to utilize those capital proceeds to last an entire lifetime. So underestimating your longevity is a huge issue, and people are living longer. And so, in fact, there was a recent adjustment made to Social Security as a whole with respect to life expectancies and how that affected RMD strategies. And so now you are forced to take your minimum distribution at age 73 as opposed to age 70 and a half, which it was just a few years ago. And that's because they made an adjustment because of longevity. And so people are living longer. We have better health care available to us. People are taking better care of themselves. And so because of that, it runs a higher risk of you needing funds for a longer window of time in your lifetime. And so when we talk about this base for most of our folks, which is Social Security as a household, you want to make sure that we're not underestimating a benefit that could be advantageous to you for years and years and years to come. And so clearly we want to understand how to plan and how to interact with the longevity issue, and running cash flow analysis might be the very best answer, with stress testing where it is that you are from a financial aspect. Another thing that's often overlooked, and a mistake that's made, is the tax implications of this. And some people don't know that your Social Security income is taxable. And it basically depends on the household income as to where or how much you're paying on your Social Security income. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 85% of your Social Security benefit is taxable income to you, which, of course, if you're not accounting for and we're taking into consideration that you need other monies from your IRA benefits and your pension funds, et cetera. And oh, by the way, some people still want to work. These all play into how to enact and make the most of your Social Security benefit. And so not accounting for the tax implications of this is a mistake, and we don't want that to happen. So understanding this benefit and how it implies as to your household income and where the money is going to come from when you ultimately retire is a big deal. So we don't want you to be out overlooking that benefit for sure. Failing to check your earnings record, I can raise my hand. This was an issue for me, actually. As I looked through my Social Security benefits, I found that they had a zero in one of the earning years that I had. So it looked like to them, I earned zero as a taxable income, which I know for a fact wasn't true. And I was able to send them some financial records and to clarify that and to clear it up. And it actually increased my Social Security benefit. And so this is a subtle adjustment or a subtle scenario that often gets overlooked, but certainly we want to include this in our items to not overlook or to avoid making a mistake, because mistakes are made. And in the event that we can catch them prior to you actually collecting your benefit, we want an absolute to do so. And in fact, it's even more important for you folks who have a Social Security offset to your pension. So if you work for a company that has a pension plan that actually has an offset with your record of your Social Security income and what that projection looks like at age 65, you want to be 100% certain that it's an accurate number that they're basing that off of, because it affects your pension plan as well. So failing to regularly check on this could result in a lower benefit. And clearly, it's one of the mistakes that we want to try to avoid if it's all possible. Ignoring earning limits. This doesn't happen all that often, but certainly it's something that we need to account for. And so if you're planning on working to any degree, we want to make sure that that's a priority that overlooks your need for Social Security or starting your Social Security benefit early, right? So if you retire at 62 or 63 and your thought is, oh, I'm going to collect Social Security and work, we got to make sure that the earnings that you're going to have doesn't affect your penalty that's relative to earning too much money, because there's a cap on what you can earn. And so that cap is typically indexed for inflation each year, but it's a low amount. Okay. It's not like you were being able to work on a full-time basis and collect your Social Security benefit without having any issues. Okay, so the income that you're going to bring in from another source, in addition to your Social Security, could put you over these earning limits, and it could create a problem where you're just paying the income back that you're earning from Social Security back into the system because you're earning too much money. And so we want to be aware of these limitations, and we want to avoid them at all costs. And we can do that by looking at the IRS website, or obviously we can help you with what those numbers are, but those are typically indexed for inflation each year. Not coordinating this benefit with your other retirement assets is a massive problem in our eyes. I mean, this is the whole reason why we advocate people take the time to go through and update and do a cash flow analysis, which is a stress test of where you're at. And we can look at what it potentially could entail with respect to taking your benefits at age 62 versus 67 versus postponing them to age 70. And so we want to help you make the most intelligent and most beneficial decision in your household possible. And we feel like it requires a cash flow analysis and an effort to do that. And so we would coordinate that obviously with your other retirement assets. But this is a mistake that we see often because, for example, as I mentioned, your Social Security benefit, part of that benefit is taxable income, right? And if you think about how the tax system is set up, the tax system is a progressive tax where we pay a cheaper tax on the first set of monies that we bring into our household, and then that gradually gets higher and higher and higher. And so, for example, if we know that 100% of your IRA income is 100% income taxable to you, irrespective of what state that you live in, you're paying, we're talking about the federal side here, that if your federal tax is at 10% for the first $12,000 you bring in, we don't want that first $12,000 to be convoluted by your Social Security income that's going to fill that bracket up first, right? So it could potentially be far better and far more advantageous for you to take that first $10,000 out of your IRAs and then figure out how to backfill where your income needs are coming from in an effort to maximize what we call the most tax efficient retirement strategy that you could have. So failing to coordinate these benefits with your other retirement assets can result in a less than optimal strategy. That is for sure. And so if you take a look at where your money's come from, basically there are three sources for most of us, right? We have a Social Security benefit to some level. Hopefully you have a pension. And so many of you that are watching this webinar are going to have a pension of some sort. Maybe it's only an annuity type driven plan where you don't have a lump sum option, or maybe it's a lump sum and you ultimately roll that money into an IRA where you control the funds, and you might actually add your 401k funds to that. You might choose to leave your 401k at the company level when you decide to retire, but obviously you have some options. But in a nutshell, you have these three sources that are where we're going to pull our monies from. And two of these three we know are 100% taxable income to you. The only variable is Social Security as to how that implements into your overall tax system or taxable nature with respect to your household. So I would encourage you, if you haven't already done so, as I mentioned, this cash flow analysis, this is one way we can absolutely stress test where you're at financially and give you a roadmap on what this may look like when you ultimately retire. And so the more information that you share with us, the more time that you put into the details of this plan, the more accurate it's going to be, and the more advantageous it can be for you to help plan for what we know is certainly a stressful event, because retirement is the second most stressful event that we know people have to go through, unfortunately, next to losing a spouse. So we don't take this process lightly. And so if you haven't already had a cash flow analysis or a cash projection done, we encourage you to do that. And we encourage you to spend some time with one of our team members in an effort to not only get that done, but maybe to answer some specific questions that you have, because we have this lovely quote that says, retirement is wonderful if you have two essentials, right? Much to live on and much to live for. And so we can control both of these to some level. And so the more you have to live on, the more that obviously you'll have to be able to produce during you and your potential spouse's lifetime. And so if you're open to wanting to talk to one of our team members or myself, or anybody at the group, please email us. You can email questions at info@theretirementgroup.com. You can also call our 800 number, which is 800-900-5867. Take a picture of the QR code to the left, and it will give you a chance to schedule some time on a calendar that's convenient for you. And we'll do our best to address those questions and concerns that you have at that time. And if necessary, schedule a follow-up meeting with you if you'd like. And then again, that's the LinkedIn page on the QR code to the right, where you can follow us on LinkedIn to get some defined updates with respect to your company plan and kind of things that are specific and correlated to you. So with that, I know we kind of covered this in a pretty broad scope, and it was fairly quick, but the point is there are mistakes that are made when it comes time to addressing this Social Security thing. And if you don't have a team member or a partner that you can count on to kind of help navigate through those things, the least of which we think you should do is to contact your Social Security administrator at a local level and do your best to schedule some time with them to help you better understand what your options are. So with that, what I'll do is pass the presentation back over to Sam and see if we have any questions before we let you go for the afternoon. Sam?
Hey, Patrick. Yeah, let's answer just a few questions. We don't want to keep anybody too long. Number one, how can I determine if I'm eligible for spousal benefits, and what impact does this have on my own Social Security benefits?
Wow. So this is a great question, of which we will try to do our best to keep it as short as possible. In a nutshell, you can determine if you have Social Security benefits, obviously, by knowing if you worked for a 10 or 40 quarters, right? 10 full years. And that would generate your own benefit. And so part of the answer to this question is dependent on if you have a personal benefit of your own first, right? So once we determine that, then what impact it has on your own benefit is related to your age spread on when you plan on collecting and what the difference is between that age and your spouse's age, how much they paid into the system, what their benefits are. And boy, there's a whole lot of kind of one-offs after that to answer your question. And frankly, this is where I think you get a ton of value in talking with your Social Security administrator to understand exactly what options that you have and what it may do to your household if you postpone one benefit or collect on another, and what it might mean. Because in the end, if you're married, don't forget your surviving spouse is only going to get one of the two benefits. And so the way this works is if you plan on choosing the higher benefit, of course, waiting entails a lot, and so if you can afford to do so, it may behoove you to do that. But in a nutshell, the spousal benefit is dependent on a bunch of things that are going to be specific to you. But one of the ways you do that is to contact your Social Security administrator to find this out.
Alrighty, thank you. Let's see. What are the tax implications of my Social Security benefits, and how can I minimize taxes on my retirement income?
Ooh, well, what a great question. This is one of our priorities from our planning aspect because we're looking to do the most tax efficient thing possible at all costs, right? So, one of the things that we have to concern ourselves with is when we plan on taking this benefit, because as I mentioned, some people don't even know that you are required to pay tax on a part of your Social Security income, and it's somewhere between 50 and 85% of the benefit. And so, as I mentioned a few minutes ago when I was talking about potentially filling up your lower tax brackets with distributions that you take from your IRAs, you can only do that if you don't have household income coming from Social Security. So, in other words, you can control when you take money out of your IRAs, that money is taxable income to you, and it would effectively fill up the lower tax brackets so that you're paying some cheap tax on what we know is 100% taxable income to you. Whereas Social Security, only a part of that is taxable, and it depends on your household income on how much tax you're actually paying on the benefit that you receive. So, what we care about here is the implications of your Social Security benefits do have an impact on what you do, how you do it, and when you plan on doing it. And so, in order to minimize your taxes, you've got to know what the best strategy is for your household in an effort to take advantage of that. So, we would need to talk to this person specifically to help them understand exactly what it is that is relevant to them. But in a general sense, just understand that, the mix of where you're getting your income from with Social Security benefits and potential monies coming from IRAs and pension plans and things like this could interact with the most tax efficient strategy possible. But there's, certainly a lot of things to consider with respect to that question.
Alrighty, Patrick, I think we have time for one more. If I continue to work after claiming Social Security, how will this affect my benefits? And are there penalties or limits I should be aware of?
There absolutely are. These limits are set out by the IRS and they're changed every year. Typically, as I mentioned previous, they're indexed for inflation, right? And so it says you can have a cap on your earnings, and if you go over that cap, basically what it is a penalty or a taxation on the monies that you're getting from Social Security. So in a nutshell, if you work over this cap, let's say you make over the limit, and I think the limit is like $34,000 or something. I don't remember what it actually is because it changes every single year. But if you make over this amount of money and you were taking Social Security, you would basically go from January to about September without a benefit, as an example, from the last case study that I ran into, and then have the rest of the benefits for the rest of the year. So in other words, 3/4 of your tax year, you're not technically getting a benefit because you have to pay that money back because you've earned too much monies to get over that limit. So there are limits. There are penalties that you need to be aware of, and that if you're going to consider retiring and then working somewhere else to generate an income, if it's any income of any substantial amount, you'll want to consider postponing your Social Security benefit because of that. So, yeah.
Alrighty. That was all we had time for today, Patrick. Anything
Oh,
else
okay.
before we
Okay.
end?
No. I think hopefully the folks that joined us today got some value out of what we had to talk about. Like I said, Social Security is really not only is it complicated to some level, especially if you have two spouses that are working. It does give you some flexibility, of course. But my biggest concern is that people are making mistakes when it comes time to just saying, "Hey, I'm going to think with my emotions. I want to get my benefit as soon as possible," and they start it without thinking about some of these things that we've talked about today. So hopefully you understand that it's important and that we want to do our best to help you for sure. If you want, you can reach out to us, and we're delighted to do that.
Alrighty, thank you. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Thanks,
All right,
Patrick.
everyone. Have a great day.